All Access Pete's Preseason is brought to you by these sponsors.
We are rolling along, heading up to the 2025 high school football season, the High School Red Zone. A lot of excitement around the area on Channel 7 and the CW62. You've likely seen our preview stories on the news. You can also find those at WSPA.com. And on August 16th, a Saturday night, 7 p.m., our hour-long High School Red Zone season preview show. One of the coaches in our area who's had great success in his 5 years so far, getting ready for year number 6 with the Christchurch Cavaliers, Quin Hatfield, kind of join us here in the studio. Coach, thanks for coming on board. What an interesting ascendancy you had to taking over Christchurch. First and foremost, you're one of the area coaches who got the job right ahead of the pandemic. So I remember you trying to fight through that first season, and it's not like you'd been at the school. I mean, even, had been promoted as an assistant. You kind of came in from the outside, as best I can understand. But the point is, that just had to be absolutely every day had to be a grind to get through that.
Yeah, I mean, it was challenging for sure. I was announced as the head football coach at Christchurch on Valentine's Day 2020. So that was February 14th, and, just right out a month later was when everything started shutting down, pandemic, and all that stuff. And so I'd had a couple of team meetings, but, trying to build a culture and connect with players in a virtual format was extremely challenging. But I'll say that when we finally got the green light about I think it was the first week of June we were aiming for, and then it got delayed a week, and we were the first school in Greenville County to go, if my memory serves me
wow.
right. We didn't know if we were going to have a season. We kept hearing, hey, we're going to have a season, just keep showing up, and then it would kind of get delayed. But I think that really helped us in the long run, just with guys fired up to get back on campus, to be together, and then just having to kind of lean into each other with a lot of uncertainty and saying, look, let's just make the most out of it. Every day matters. Hey, take the next day, and then, we ended up opening the season September 25th against 96 that year, and I remember like it was yesterday.
So speaking of 96, as best I recall, you're a Lakelands guy originally, right? From Greenwood. Kind of take me through your growing up and then your journey that took you to where you are now.
Yeah, I spent some time in Greenwood. That's where my dad, had a practice. And but when parents divorced, we moved to Manning, South Carolina. Which is where I grew up from. Pretty much third grade on.
Oh, wow.
From high school down at Lawrence Manning Academy.
Yep.
And so really more of a PD, a low country guy, depending on how you draw the lines out.
Yep. Yeah, that was interesting. I used to work in the Florence TV market, and Clarendon County is where Manning is.
Yep.
So we covered Manning High. We didn't really cover Lawrence Manning that much, but Manning High was really good. This is the late 80s. They actually beat Daniel for a state title. You may have been a young guy who barely remembers that.
I remember it, 1988, because I went to the public school, went to Manning Middle School, so played up in there, so certainly followed the Monarchs there, and then, was at Lawrence Manning, for high school and the back end of middle school. But Manning, just in general, there's good football. Always has been down there. Small town atmosphere, and, people care about Friday nights for sure.
They were the first high school in that area, maybe one of the first in the state that in the late 80s built it like a really nice stadium.
Nice, big,
it had like
stadium.
It had like wrought iron gates, and they had a big pocket quarterback named Andy Johnson, and they had a great couple of running backs. One of them was a kid named Chris Ranton. He was like a bowling ball, and he scored like 95 touchdowns in his career because they'd always give it to him like at the 2-yard line. But the best player they had was a guy named Glenn Murray, who then went on and played in the majors with the Phillies.
Great baseball player.
But what a player he was. He was a great running back as well. So you're down there, and then you were a very interesting hire for Christchurch, a program that just a few years before you got there, it had a 55-game winning streak, the state record, had won 4 state titles. You'd been in coaching, but not necessarily at the high school ranks, as best I can tell. Am I right about that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I'd when I graduated from Lawrence Manning Academy, went to Newberry College and played 4 years of football there, and went there as a quarterback, and long story short, a guy I came in with ended up being a real good friend of mine, Dustin Coates, Airport High School.
Yep.
Arm was a lot stronger than mine, saw the writing on the wall, and I'd played some safety in high school, so I ended up on the defensive side of the ball. And so when I got out of Newberry, I took a job in the corporate world with a company called Takeda Pharmaceuticals, and and just grew a career there. They had been really good to me, but I had flexibility to give back and coach and do something that I love, related to the game of football. So the very first job I had was at Spring Valley High School, which, you talk about coming sort of full circle. Jimmy Noonan was the head coach there, and I went and knocked on the door at the school and said, hey, I don't even need anybody to pay me. I just want to give back. So I ended up coaching defensive backs on the ninth grade team at the time. Well, Jimmy Noonan is now the head coach at Lawrence Manning Academy.
Oh, no kidding.
So, and then the second job I ever had, a buddy of mine, Adam Holmes, took a job at Hammond as a JV coach, and he said, why don't you come over here? And so ended up coaching JV ball over there for a year, then was the defensive backs coach on the varsity squad at Hammond School in Columbia, coached there for a few years. Of course, we opened with them this year. And then just always kept my hand in different capacities. Ended up moving a lot with the job, with some upward mobility within the corporate world, but always kept my hand in coaching. And I got we moved back to Greenville, South Carolina in 2017, the second stint we had here, and started coaching with the Greenville Red Raiders and doing some of that. But then my oldest child, who we're actually taking him to school tomorrow at the Citadel, parent-player meeting. He's going to play down there.
Jimmy Noonan's alma mater, by the way.
There you go. Just tying it all in. Anyways, we ended up moving him over to Christ Church, and he was there for a year, and then he was in middle school. And I just went to Coach Don Frost one day, and I didn't really know him that well. And I said, hey, y'all have a junior program here? He said, no. I said, I think a lot of the guys from Christ Church or the kids are going over and playing it over there at Greenville, and why not start it here? And he said, you want to do that? I said, well, actually, I had coached youth football down at, ran the whole Walton Youth Football Association down in Walton, Georgia, big time football down there.
Yeah.
I said, well, let's start a youth program here. And again, my son wasn't even playing, so it had nothing to do with that.
Sure.
He was in middle school at the time, and we ended up getting some really good coaches on board, ended up having like 38 kids. It was 4th, 5th, 6th graders. And those kids that were 6th graders on that junior Cavs team are now seniors. So,
wow.
The Jude Halls, the George Michael Stathakis, Bates Man, a lot of those guys. And so all that said, I was coaching there and was, again, staying with my, job at Takeda Pharmaceuticals. And then Coach Frost had a heart attack and kind of pushed him into retirement. And it was an interim coach. And, but things were looking to change, and our AD called one day after that junior Cavs season, a couple months after that, and said, hey, we're looking to make a change. And I thought maybe she was just reaching out to say, do you know anybody? And she said, hey, we think you're the man for the job.
Wow.
And again, unconventional hire, no varsity head coaching experience. I'm sure if the job was posted, there have been many more folks more qualified than me, but something they saw through being around the program, what we did with junior Cavs, and just I think from a leadership side and a visionary side, Molly Miller took a shot. And in one sense, it was a no-brainer. On the other hand, it was like, man, 20 years at the corporate world and all that, so I had to make a big decision at that point, which took a leap of faith and went to Christ Church.
And then you became full-time on the faculty at Christ Church? Is that
sure
how it worked?
Yes, joined full-time in that that next school year.
The transition of running a youth program, and again, you'd had other experiences doing that, but then now taking over a varsity with a JV feeder, was it that different other than the kids being older?
Yeah, it was different in terms of just, more complex schemes. But at the end of the day, I think it's like anything. It's about building relationships, about connecting with people and trying to figure out what makes them tick to get the best out of them, whether it's the corporate industry working with a 45-year-old man or, a 12-year-old individual or 16-year-old, But yeah, I think it's certainly more complex, more moving parts with coaching varsity football and running a program for sure.
Was there had to be a desire, of course, to think, all right, I know, Don, you weren't in the area when they were doing all that winning, but this is, less than a decade before you'd taken over. They were this iconic 1A program. Was there a motivation right away to say, I really want to not only be successful here to a certain extent, but I want to get it back to that and win state titles? I mean, was that like a burning desire, or just kind of let that process happen?
No, I think it was definitely there. That's part of what drew me to the job, was a tradition of Christ Church football and sort of a standard of excellence across the board at Christ Church. But, you almost had to have that, Pete, because every day you go into the facility and you're going in the locker room and they're the the plaques on the CTC, the Cavalier Training Center, and you heard about the streak and all that. And but the goal was to get it back on top, and that was part of day one.
State titles in 22 and 23 and 1A. And again, some of these kids you may have had in your you were probably just inheriting them as high schoolers, but you'd known them for a while. You win the state titles, and then, in part because of the success that Don Frost has had, a lot of things changed in the high school league. They reshifted, reclassified, that kind of thing. They'd created 5 classifications, but now they added a multiplier. 24, you ended up having a winning record, but being bumped up 2 levels.
Yeah.
What have been the adaptations? What have been the challenges? And what have been some of the ways that you've had to find the pathway to success doing that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we're still trying to find it. One of the main takeaways after last season is we got to get bigger, we got to get stronger. So we've done some different things in our weight program, and Coach DJ Johnson's done a great job with that. But I think the other thing is, we tried to make some modifications early on last year to say, hey, let's have primary defensive guys, primary offensive guys, and kind of go that route. That's just not who we are at Christ Church. We got to get our best players on the field, and we dress 28, 29 on a Friday night. A lot of the teams we're going to play 55 and 58 and 59 players, but it's no excuse. We just have to figure out how to have better endurance, practice a little bit differently, and I think we figured a lot of that out last year. And but it was certainly a learning curve. There's no question.
I would think based on. Look, it can't be easy to run a youth football program because that says, ground level and, young kids learning the game. And then you start a whole new youth feeder program they hadn't had before at Christ Church. So you've had the challenge. And then you take over a varsity program, having never, coached a varsity team. I would think maybe you've been trained to adapt to the kind of adversity of the ebbs and flows of how things can adjust. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, and I think, you're exactly right. I would say that. But I think even going back to the corporate time I spent there, 20 years in different leadership positions and realignments and restructurings and just all the moving parts and having to change strategy. I think a lot of that certainly prepared me, whether you're running a business or, running a football team. So I think a lot of that certainly helped me and with transferable skill when I got into the job as head coach at Christ Church.
Yeah, it's got to be great to have eyes on from a different field. Quick thought on your team. You mentioned Jude Hall, great kid. What a great-looking player. You can go up and get it. They had a long-time NFL kicker out of Christ Church not long ago in Chandler Catanzaro. I think that might be the next guy playing in the league out of Christ Church.
Yeah, Jude Hall's special. He's going back to when I first had him at junior Cavs. He stuck out, but I think the biggest thing with him is he started getting more serious about football probably about a year and a half ago, working different in the weight room, doing stuff on the field on his own, and developing just, as an overall receiver and a football player. But he's also matured a lot as a leader. And we could see him on Sundays. And I also always said that, Jackson Rep, everybody would always, say he wasn't tall enough, but I'm not so sure we might not see him playing professionally somewhere at some point.
Sure. Well, Coach, I know it's going to be exciting. Jude Hall with a season at Christ Church before he heads to Memphis. And maybe this is the year that Christ Church makes a statement in 3A. But Quin Hatfield kind of come on by. Good luck in the season ahead, Coach.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate y'all having me. Go Cavs.
All Access Pete's Preseason is brought to you by these sponsors.
We're talking with area high school football coaches as the 2025 season is essentially upon us. Over the past several months, teams have been working to what should be a great fall. On Channel 7, we have our high school Red Zone team previews on the news. Also have our 1 hour long high school Red Zone season preview show coming up Saturday, August 16th at 7 p.m. on Channel 7. And everything we do on TV can be found at WSPA.com. Among the coaches who's had great success in the area since taking over 7 years ago. I can't believe how fast it's gone for Jason Tone, head coach of the T.L. Hanna Yellow Jackets, kind of join us here in the studio. And Coach, I vividly remember I was on the golf course, one of the golf courses down at Disney, And when I got the news in June of 2019, Jeff Herron, your predecessor, who you came up from Georgia to coach under, he announced after a couple of years, very good years at Hanna, he decided to move on. And I thought, I'll bet you Jason is in line for that. But you've done a great job, and I know you're excited for the season ahead. How's the offseason been for your team as you lost a great running back named K.D. Patterson? But as per usual, I know you got a lot of troops ready to go.
The offseason's been really good. You know, our guys are working really hard. You know, it's kind of business as usual. We usually have big senior classes, usually over 30-plus graduating. So that's nothing new. And the kids are looking forward to their turn, you know, so to speak, and stepping up and filling those big shoes. And, you know, honestly looking to try and, you know, take the next step, you know, and move past the second and third round of the playoffs.
You run that wing T, and you guys do it so well. You're one of those area teams that has that template that, you know, with T.L. Hanna, you're going to have them coming right at you on the ground and playing tough defense. So let's get into your football journey a little bit. I know you came up from Georgia. I really don't know that much more about you from there, but where'd you grow up, and then how did football impact you growing up? What was your high school career like, and then what happened from there?
Well, I grew up in Valdosta, Georgia. I've been in South Georgia my whole life, but 2 years. My dad was a military guy, so we were at Moody Air Force Base. Lived 1 year in New Mexico and 1 year in Florida, but I was, you know, in like kindergarten, first and second grade. So it was the early years of my life. And then other than that, I was in Valdosta, and I grew up and played at Lowndes down in what they call Titletown, USA. You know, played for legendary coach Milt Miller. And that's where I really fell in love with the game of football and fell in love with just trying to continue football. I knew I wasn't going to play in college. You play offensive line in South Georgia at 5'9", 205 pounds. You're not going to play college football, and I knew that. So I went to Valdosta State and started my coaching journey from there.
Wow, and what a great program they've been over the years on the D2 level. I'll tell you, you'll appreciate this. About 45 years ago, we came south on a vacation with my parents. We're driving down I-75. We get to South Georgia. I look over to my left, and I see this massive football stadium. I'm thinking, I know there's a Valdosta State. I'd actually heard of it. I grew up in the Northeast, but I'd heard of it. And it turns out that's the high school stadium. So that's the high school stadium you played in?
Yes, the Concrete Palace right there on I-75. Holds about 15,000 people.
Wow.
It's packed out when Lowndes plays Valdosta. It's packed out a lot now. You know, when I was in 9th and 10th grade, we weren't very good. And then my junior year, we wound up losing in the semifinals in the Georgia Dome back when that was a thing. And, now the state championships are in the Dome. But, you know, beat Valdosta for the first time in 15 years. That was our big claim to fame, you know.
Wow.
It's a big atmosphere. It means a lot. You know, South Georgia football and football in general in the South is a huge deal, and that's just where I fell in love with it.
Yep. So you go to Valdosta State. You work in the program there. I suppose they had some success while you were learning your craft as a future coach. And then where did the coaching career take you after you graduated from college?
So I coached the freshman football team at Lowndes. I actually community coached at Lowndes all the way through at Valdosta State. I didn't coach at Valdosta State.
Gotcha.
I continued to help my alma mater, and I coached there for 5 years while I was in college.
Wow.
And then whenever I graduated, they hired me on, and I was there for 3 more years. So I started out, you know, basically my first 8 years, 5 being a community coach, and the last 3 as a driver's ed instructor and football coach. And then I left there to be an offensive coordinator at Wayne County, another school in South Georgia. I was there about 7 months. And then I met Jeff Herron, and he hired me over at Camden County.
Yep.
And I was there for 5 years before I became a head coach at Worth County. So had a couple of jobs early on and got settled in. And after Worth County moved out, I wasn't planning on moving above what I call the Macon-Dixon line, because I was going to stay in South Georgia my whole life.
Yeah.
And you know, I resigned because I was burned out from being a head coach. I was ready to take a step back, and you know, I was, you know, anyway, I don't know exactly what the reasons were that the Lord called me. I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't do some, you know, I'd burned myself out. I'd lost all joy as far as coaching went, and so I resigned. I didn't have a job, which I recommend for anybody listening to this. Don't do that.
No,
you know, always,
not a good thing.
Always have a job before you quit your job. And But I had faith. I knew I wasn't supposed to be there, but I didn't know where I was going to be. And Coach Aaron called me probably a week later, saying that he was going to take the job in South Carolina and that I should follow him along, or at least take a look at it. And from a retirement standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but there's a lot of things when God calls you to do stuff that make a lot of sense. So yeah. Came up here, checked it out, prayed about it. It was an awesome situation. And, silly me, my plan was to come up here 2 or 3 years and then move back down to South Georgia. Yeah. And that was 8 years ago. So. Yeah,
well, you moved to the upstate of South Carolina and the Anderson area. It's a beautiful place, as I know you've become accustomed to. And as long as your family's happy, that's really tends to what matters. As long as the boss at home is happy, I know that's a key. Yes, Camden County is the one down near Kingsland, like just above Jacksonville. And then Worth County, I'm not sure I know where that is.
So Worth County is it's 30 minutes west of Tifton. So if you go down I-75, borders Tift County, it borders Crisp County and Cordele, and it's a small school that my head coach that I played for, that was where he was the head coach at before he went to Lowndes. So I had kind of an in there talking to him, and was able to get my foot in the door there, and really had a good time, my 4 years there. Really took the program, again, we didn't win as many, quote unquote, as you wanted to, but you go from 4 and 5 wins to playing in the second and third round. Our last 2 years, we got put out by Buford and Greater Atlanta Christian. So, it was a pretty good run for us. Yeah. But again, there's got to be, other than wins and losses on Friday, there's got to be more to it. And I don't know what it was, but it was just time for me to go. Sure. I had taken them as far as I could. Yeah.
Were you playing Colquitt County in schools like that, or were they bigger than your level?
They're way bigger than us.
Much bigger than your level.
They're single A now. Worth County's single A now, and the population hadn't changed. But when I was there, we played in 4A. Yep. So we were triple A by the classification, but we played up in 4A to limit the travel. Just small county, South Georgia school don't have a lot of money. We didn't want to travel, 2 and 3 hours away to play sporting events. Yep. So we played up in 4A, and then my last year, we reclassed and stayed in AAA, but now they're single A and having some success as well. And, and so it's a small school of about 800, 700, between 700 and 800 students.
So nearly a decade associated with T.L. Hanna, either on the staff as an offensive coordinator or as a head coach. So I think that's a pretty good sample size for this comparison, because I see some of our area teams will play Georgia schools during the regular season. What can you point to the difference between high school football in Georgia, and maybe you can compare it more to closer to the 5L level that you're at Hanna, but Georgia and South Carolina? Because I've heard lots of different theories over the years, but do you have a theory on any differences in the quality of the football, or just the style of football on the high school level?
Well, all I know is South Georgia, so in the different areas in Georgia is different types of football or different aspects, but from South Georgia to here, one of the biggest differences that I noticed when I got here, and again, it's changed, even at Hanna, but, in South Georgia, Friday nights, football was the thing to do. It was it. That was it. And, in South Carolina, so far, it's just one of many things you can do, which is, again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just one of the biggest difference. The upper schools, the upper echelon schools in South Carolina can compete with the upper echelon schools in Georgia. The biggest difference I see is the level of physicality at the skill position. Your linebackers, your line, those guys are going to be physical, but the corners and the safeties, like when they make tackles in South Georgia, it's just different. And again, that was 8 years ago. It could have changed by now. That was the first thing I noticed when I got here in 2017. So that was a long time ago. This is the longest place I've been in my entire life. So
wow, it's so you're a South Carolinian now. There you go.
Guess. Well, not lived but coached. This is the longest place I've ever been. Is T.L. Hanna. It's a wonderful opportunity for my family and myself, and we really love it. So,
yeah. Yep. Well, and as you know, and you heard the history of it, both Hanna and Westside were struggling in the earlier part of this century. They did a penny sales tax, I think around 2014 or 15. A superintendent came into that district who was from Georgia and recognized the importance of football, and we know just how important a football season can be to getting the school year started for everybody in the school. But you've obviously gotten to a place that, I mean, your weight room is an absolute palace. You got a beautiful stadium. I know you're continuing to make enhancements there. But the importance to know you've had that support, it had to be a really positive thing when Coach Herron invited you up to join his staff.
It was. And you know, getting to work for, you know, he's a mentor to me. You know, I mean, he just got inducted into the National Hall of Fame, you know, in Canton.
Yep.
And to be able to work with somebody like that for 7 years, you know, 5 at Camden and 2 here, just to learn and kind of grow as a coach. We still talk. I talked to him this morning. You know, we still talk 2 or 3 times a week. He's like a second father to me. He is a mentor. And just to be able to come, I didn't want to work for just anybody. But, you know, again, the Lord has a way of knowing what you need at the right time, and it was the perfect timing to take a step back and just learn and grow. And, you know, when this situation came about to where I was allowed to be the head coach here at Hanna, you know, I vowed to do it different, you know, and so far I have. So I'm excited about that, and you know, again, I'm extremely grateful to Jeff Herron and T.L. Hanna and the opportunity that I have.
39 wins over the past 4 years. You came close to knocking off a really good Dutch Fork team for the big prize, the one that still, I know, sits in your craw. And you've been, I'm pretty sure that was the year you won at the reservation at Gaffney to get to that title game, which I think surprised some folks. But you've done a heck of a job there. I know you've got goals to try to bring a state title to Hanna. They've been a good program over the years. This run, I think, if you look back in history, has probably been the best decade they've had collectively. But good luck to you as the season approaches. And I know regardless of who you put in those uniforms, it seems to be just a consistent, great brand down there. So good luck as the season approaches.
Thank you so much. Go Jackets.
There you go. Well, Jason Tone getting ready for another season, his 7th guiding the T.L. Hanna Yellow Jackets.